And after 8 years, China's foreign trade surpassed the $5 trillion and $6 trillion benchmarks within 1 year, reaching a historical high. The gross volume in 2021 was $1.4 trillion. Second, imports and exports with major trading partners kept steady growth, and foreign trade with Belt and Road countries growing particularly fast. In 2021, China's 5 largest trading partners were ASEAN, the EU, the United States, Japan, and the ROK. Our trade with these 5 parties were 5.67 trillion, 5.35 trillion yuan, 4.88 trillion yuan, 2.4 trillion, and 2.34 trillion respectively, up by 19.7%, 19.1%, 20.2%, 9.4%, and 18.4% respectively. In the same period, China's trade with Belt and Road countries grew by 23.6%, which was 2.2 percentage points higher than the overall growth rate. Third, trade modes further optimized, with general trade volume accounting for over 60% of the total. In 2021, China's general trade was 24.08 trillion yuan, up by 24.7%, and accounting for 61.6% of the total share. And this share was up by 1.6 percentage points compared to the previous year. Export was 13.24 trillion yuan, up by 24.4%, and import was 10.84 trillion yuan, up by 25%. In the same period, processing trade was 8.5 trillion yuan, up by 11.1%, accounting for 21.7% of the total share. Fourth, foreign trade entities were further invigorated, with private enterprises being more active in imports and exports. In 2021, China had 567,000 enterprises with export and import records, up by 36,000 year-on-year. China's private enterprises registered 19 trillion yuan in imports and exports, up by 26.7%, and 2 percentage points higher than the previous year. In the same period, foreign invested enterprises marked 14.03 trillion yuan in imports and exports, up by 12.7%, and SOEs had 5.94 trillion yuan in imports and exports, up by 27.7%. Fifth, exports and exports of electromechanical products showed good momentum of growth. In 2021, China exported 12.83 trillion yuan of electromechanical products, up by 20.4%, and that accounted for 59% of the total export. Among them, exports of automatic data processing machines and components, mobile phones, and motor vehicles increased by 12.9%, 9.3%, and 104.6% respectively. In the same period, imports of electromechanical products increased by 12.2% to 7.37 trillion yuan, accounting for 42.4% of the total imports. And among that, imports of integrated circuits grew by 15.4%. The year 2021 was a milestone in the history of the CPC and the People's Republic of China. Facing the strong impact of COVID-19, China still demonstrated strong resilience in its foreign trade. And facing these strong challenges, China still scored a high performance in its challenging context. And this is attributable to the leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. Going forward, the GACC will continue to follow the instructions from the CPC and firmly implement the decisions made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. We will use concrete actions to enforce COVID response and control at ports and continue to improve our services to promote higher volume and quality of our foreign trade. Generally speaking, we have achieved a good start in the 14th five-year period for foreign trade. Despite the increase in volatility and uncertainties, this year our economy is facing a threefold challenge, compounded by a challenging international economic situation. The external environment is increasingly uncertain. International demand is slowing down. At the same time, a higher base number of trade in 2021 will give extra pressure to our foreign trade in 2022. We will face squarely to these challenges, but at the same time, we should not forget that the sound fundamentals of China's economic development will remain unchanged. We'll have to stay confident. The next step, we will follow the guidance of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era and faithfully implement the decisions at the 19th CPC National Congress and the plenary sessions of the 19th CPC Central Committee and follow the approach of pursuing progress while maintaining stability. Enforce the new development philosophy and facilitate efforts to foster a new development paradigm. We will coordinate efforts to advance COVID control at ports and ensure stability of foreign trade, and will continue to improve our services at ports to facilitate high quality and high-level opening up of our economy. We will promote cross-cyclical adjustments and will present a good scorecard to the 20th National Congress of the CPC. Now I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you, Mr. Li. Now the floor is open for questions. Before raising your question, please identify your media affiliation. China Daily. In 2021, foreign trade of China maintained two-digit growth and achieved a historical high. What are the main drivers and what are your expectations for this year's foreign trade? Thank you very much for your question. In 2021, China's foreign trade achieved rapid growth. Within the year, we surpassed the two benchmarks of 5 trillion and 6 trillion US dollars. With higher quality and volume. This was a good start for foreign trade in the 14th five-year plan period. We believe that there are many of the following drivers for this momentum. First, China's economic development and COVID response outperformed other parts of the world. In 2021, China's economy continued to recover. We made new progress in fostering a new development paradigm, and high-quality development delivered new results. The major economic indicators grew rapidly. The sound fundamentals and resilience of China's economy will remain unchanged, and domestic production and consumption demand have provided strong support for steady growth of foreign trade. In 2021, intermediate product import and export grew by 24.9% and 28.6% respectively in 2021, and consumption goods import grew by 9.9%. Second, global economy maintained the momentum of recovery in 2021. Global economy was on the track of recovery on the whole. The World Bank and IMF both forecasted over 5% growth of world economy in 2021. And WTO forecasted that global trade in goods would grow by 10.8%. China's export to the EU and Africa both grew by more than 20% in 2021, and our export to Latin America grew by more than 40%. And based on high growth in the previous year, in 2021, China's export of stay-at-home economy appliances like laptop and house appliances grew by 13.2%. And our export of medical supplies and drugs grew by 101.2%, providing strong support to global response to COVID-19. And third, our measures to ensure stable growth continue to yield effects. Last year, China introduced a series of policy measures to ensure stability for market entities in market and industry and supply chains in foreign trade. For example, we ensured reasonably sufficient liquidity, extended and improved some tax and fee cuts policies, applied new structural tax cuts, and strengthened financial support for MSMEs and manufacturing enterprises, deepened reform of government functions, continued to improve business environment, and facilitated faster growth of new business models in foreign trade, deepened the reform for trade facilitation of cross-border commerce, and promoted innovation and reform of free trade pilot zones. This myriad of policies have been implemented in details and continue to yield effects, providing more support for foreign trade businesses. And this is an important pillar for stable growth of foreign trade. And about future forecast, I have, like I mentioned in my opening remarks, now the global pandemic is still resurging, and this has added further complexity and uncertainty to external environment. The base effect and comparative advantage of China's economy might be weakened. And in 2022, our foreign trade faced more uncertainties and volatilities and unbalanced factors. But at the same time, we must be aware of the resilience of China's economy and sound fundamentals, because they will continue to provide strong support for stable foreign trade. Thank you very much. The next question. CCTV. Last year, China's trade with Belt and Road countries grew faster than the overall trade. What are the highlights? At the same time, could you share with us the new measures introduced by GACC in promoting Belt and Road Initiative? Thank you very much for your question. In 2021, last year marked the 8th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative. And after it was put forth, China's trade with Belt and Road countries grew increasingly close. According to our numbers, in 2021, our trade with Belt and Road countries was 11.6 trillion yuan, up by 23.6%. And this growth rate is 2.2 percentage points higher than the growth rate of China's overall foreign trade. Our export to Belt and Road countries was 6.59 trillion yuan, up by 21.5%, and import was 5.01 trillion yuan, up by 26.4%. And our trade with Belt and Road countries have the following features. First is steady growth of trade volume. Between 2013 and 2021, total trade between China and Belt and Road countries grew from 6.46 trillion yuan to 11.6 trillion yuan. That is an annual growth rate of 7.5%. And the share of this part of trade, accounting for China's total, has increased from 25% to 29.7%. Second, we had closer cooperation on industrial and supply chains. Between 2013 and 2021, The share of intermediate products in China's export to Belt and Road countries increased from 49.8% to 56.2%. In 2021, export of automobile parts, textiles, and lithium batteries increased by 26.7%, 14.1%, and 50.4% respectively. Third, cooperation in areas like energy, agriculture, and mining showed good momentum. In 2021, China imported 1.18 trillion yuan of crude oil from Belt and Road countries, up by 44%. Imported 326.55 billion yuan of agricultural products, up by 26.1%. Imported 212.77 billion yuan of metal ore, up by 24.9%. Imported 184.45 billion yuan of natural gas, up by 38.9%. Fourth, private enterprises were dynamic. In 2021, Chinese private businesses trade with Belt and Road countries was 6.21 trillion yuan, up by 25.6%, accounting for 53.5% of the total trade between China and Belt and Road countries, and this share was up by 0.8 percentage points. About high-quality development of Belt and Road cooperation, in this respect, GACCs mainly did the following. First, promoting the development of three smarts. In 2021, February 9th, at the China CEC Summit, President Xi Jinping put forth the major initiative of deepening cooperation on trade, safety, and facilitation of customs clearance, and promoting cooperation trials of smart customs, smart border, and smart connectivity cooperation. The GACC has faithfully and earnestly implemented this initiative and put the three smarts concept into our reform and development plans. We have made efforts to and formulated relevant plans and policies to ensure greater connectivity between three smarts and existing working mechanisms under the Belt and Road Initiative. So far, we have cultivated 78 international cooperation projects under three smarts, and many of them have involved Belt and Road countries. Second, we have formulated a customs working plan for promoting high-quality Belt and Road cooperation in the 14th five-year plan period. The year 2021 was the beginning of 14th five-year plan period, and in order to promote Belt and Road customs work in this period, we have formulated this working plan, which is action and results oriented. We focused on key countries, key areas, and key projects, and coordinated efforts across agencies to promote breakthroughs in key areas. With three smarts cooperation being a highlight, we are promoting more progress and contributing more strengths of the customs system to high-quality Belt and Road cooperation. Third, we have promoted key projects with a pragmatic approach. We made all-out efforts to promote mutual recognition of AEO cooperation with Belt and Road cooperation. We signed relevant agreements with Serbia, Chile, Iran, Uganda, and South Africa on an AEO mutual recognition. By the end of 2021, Chinese customs have signed AEO mutual recognition agreements with 31 countries on their Belt and Road Initiative. Now we have also promoted the Customs Facilitation for Rail Transport project with Kazakhstan and Belarus to support further development of the China-Europe Railway Express and facilitate connectivity cooperation. Thank you very much. Next question. Thank you, Beijing Youth Daily. The Winter Olympics are around the corner. So what has the GACC done to support the hosting of the Winter Olympics and Paralympics? Thank you very much. The Beijing Winter Olympics is an important hallmark of China at an important historical juncture, as GACC has earnestly implemented the instructions by General Secretary Xi Jinping on ensuring effective COVID response at ports and strengthened our oversight and services to ensure targeted and science-based COVID response at ports and high-quality and efficient services for the two games. We're doing this to give our due contribution to the safety of the capital, to the smooth hosting of the Winter Olympics and the Paralympics. The following are the major aspects of our work. First is applying science-based and targeted approach to COVID response at ports to ensure to prevent import of cases through ports. We have strengthened communication with departure and arrival center for Winter Games to acquire information about incoming personnel in advance, and based on such information to further detail our plans. We have applied one policy for each flight and ensure rigorous checks. For example, to reduce the holding time at ports for personnel, we have formulated explanation on health declaration of charter flights for Winter Games and translated this document to multiple languages to guide relevant personnel fill declaration cards before boarding their flights so as to increase the efficiency of customs clearance. And our principle is that you have to 100%. You have to complete the required steps 100%. 99% is not enough. We have strictly enforced relevant steps and measures, including checks of health declaration cards, temperature checks, medical inspection, sample testing, and transfer and information communication. By the 10th of January this year, we have now handled 196 flights related to the Winter Games and involving 5,958 people. Second, we have continued to improve our services and working around the clock to ensure highly efficient customs clearance of relevant supplies. We released a notice on the customs clearance for the Winter Olympics and Paralympics in advance, providing detailed guidelines for registration and filing of supplies and personnel, tax guarantee for temporary entry of supplies, advance filing and approval, customs clearance for supplies, supervision of personnel and personal items, and customs clearance of journalist equipment. At the same time, we have provided streamlined filing and customs clearance for relevant supplies and personnel. We have implemented the 5+2 clearance appointment system to ensure that Winter Games supplies can be checked whenever it arrives. Apart from that, we are doing our best to ensure effective work at the supervision of imported food to ensure the smooth and safe supply of food during the two games. By the 10th of January, we have already cleared 637 batches of inbound supplies, equivalent to about 149.9 million RMB. Third, we have been strengthening personnel and technological input for goods services of the Winter Games. The Beijing Customs is responsible for the jurisdiction of the Winter Games and Paralympics. It has applied advanced technologies such as nuclear holographic positioning system, generic disinfection cabin, trace sniffer, and smart inspection robots to help increase the smartness and information application of our supervision system for Winter Games. At the same time, we have put in place an effective personnel resource mechanism with more than 1,000 frontline and reserved personnel and more than 400 emergency support team. And they will be able to provide strong logistics support for personnel related to the Winter Games. Thank you. Next question. Phoenix. Last year, China celebrated the 20th anniversary accession to WTO. Could you share with us the new features of China's foreign trade in the last 2 decades?
Thank you for your question. In 2021, China celebrated the 20th anniversary of its accession to WTO. According to JCC statistics, the total trade grew from 4.22 trillion yuan in 2001 to 39.1 trillion in 2021, a yearly increase of 12.2% on average. JCC statistics are official statistics of trading goods of China. So through the data, we can witness that China's trading goods has gone through a leapfrog development over the past 2 decades. First, imports and exports have grown by over 8 times, and China has become the largest trader in goods. China's trade in goods has started from 4.22 trillion yuan in 2001. In 2005, 2010, and also 2018, it exceeded 10 trillion yuan, 20 trillion yuan, and 30 trillion yuan. In 2021, it got close to 40 trillion yuan. So it has grown by 8.3 times over the past 2 decades. Especially in the recent decade, China's trade in goods has grown from 24.4 trillion yuan in 2012 to 39.1 trillion. The growth rate is equivalent to the total in 2019. It fully shows the remarkable achievements in China's reform and opening up. China's international market share has also grown from 4% in 2001 to 13.5% in the first 3 quarters last year. In 2013, China became for the first time the world's largest trader in goods. Last year, in dollar terms, China's foreign trade exceeded $6 trillion for the first time in history. Second, the structure of exports has taken remarkable changes, with electromechanical products accounting for nearly 60%. Over the past 2 decades, our exports grew by 12.5% on average yearly. Electromechanical products became the major exports, accounting for 59% of the total last year. In particular, since the start of COVID-19, we have actively promoted international cooperation against COVID and provided hundreds of millions masks, protective suits, testing kits, and vaccines to the world, which has provided strong underpinning for the global fight against COVID and economic recovery. Third, we've vigorously expanded imports, and imports of high-tech and resource products have steadily improved. Over the past 2 decades, our imports of goods grew by 11.8% yearly on average. In 2009, we became the second largest importer in the world. In the first 3 quarters last year, China's import accounted for 12.1% of the international market. China's more open market has enabled the world to sharing the dividends of China's economic growth and consumption boom. Over the past 2 decades, the imports of high-tech products steadily grew by 14% on average yearly, contributing to the upgrading and transformation of China's industrial structure. The imports of resource products has expanded in an orderly fashion. The imports of metal ore, crude oil, coal, and natural gas grew by 18% yearly on average, effectively complementing domestic economic steady growth. Fourth, China's trading partners have diversified, with ASEAN becoming our largest trading partner. Over the past 2 decades, China's trade with EU, the US, Japan, the ROK, and other traditional markets remained stable. The trade with these trading partners last year accounted for 38.3% of China's total foreign trade. At the same time, we have actively explored ASEAN, Africa, Latin America, Russia, India, and other emerging markets. The trade with these trading partners last year accounted for 30.7%, up from 16% in 2001. In 2020, ASEAN became China's largest trading partner, and it remained so last year, accounting for 14.5% of China's foreign trade. I'd also like to note that China's trade with BRI countries continue to deepen and also expand, further contributing to the balanced and win-win development of China's foreign trade. Fifth, the number of foreign trade entities has surged, with the private sector becoming the largest entity. Last year, China has 567,000 businesses with import and export records, up by 5.3 times compared with 2001. Over the past 2 decades, the total foreign trade of the private sector has significantly increased from 6.1% in 2001 of the total to 42.7% in 2019, making the private sector the largest foreign trade entity in China. And the share of the total trade of private sector last year accounted for 48.6%. Also, the number of foreign invested businesses with import and export records continue to grow. The number was 82,000 last year, up by 21,000 compared with 2001. The annual trade was 170 million yuan on average, up by 3.8% times compared with 2001. Sixth, the new momentum foreign trade continues to be unlocked, and new modes of foreign trade flourished. According to our data, last year, the trade in comprehensive bonded areas, pilot FTZs, and Hainan Free Trade Port grew respectively by 24.3%, 26.4%, and 57.7%, all flourishing. In terms of new modes of trade, cross-border e-commerce and market procurement continue to expand. Last year, the trade of cross-border e-commerce reached 1.98 trillion yuan, up by 15%, and market procurement trade export grew by 32.1%. Thank you. Next question. The paper. RCEP has taken effect on January the 1st. Could you please brief us on China's trade with other RCEP members, and what has GACC done to facilitate its implementation? Thank you for your question. On January the 1st this year, RCEP has officially taken effect for 6 ASEAN members, including Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, and also China, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. This has kicked off the world's largest free trade area. According to GACC data, in 2021, China's imports and exports to the other 14 RCEP members were 12.07 trillion yuan, up by 18.1%, accounting for 30.9% of the total foreign trade. It includes the exports of 5.64 trillion, up by 16.8%, and import was 6.43 trillion yuan, up by 19.2%. Among the total of 701 binding obligations of RCEP, GACC has separately or jointly taken charge of 174. That's 24.8% of the total. We have made sound preparations for that. To be specific, GACC has made efforts to facilitate RCEP's implementation on the 3 fronts. First, in terms of rules of origin or ROO and tariff reduction, we've released 2 measures for the administration of the origin of RCEP imported and exported goods and of approved exporters, as well as 4 supporting normative documents. To implement RCEP's tariff reduction and ROO, we've comprehensively upgraded the GACC Origin Management Information System, achieved mutual sharing of visa data and clearance data, and built an all-dimensional customs supervision and service network that combines the management of origin of products, businesses, and products. We have revised the product-specific ROO, concluded consultations on ROO implementing guidelines, made China's proposal a consensus of various sides, and removed obstacles to RCEP implementation. Second, in terms of customs procedure and trade facilitation, we have focused on RCEP trade facilitation rules, aimed at building a market-oriented, law-based, and world-class port business environment. Continue to optimize clearance procedure, enhance the efficiency, and lower clearance costs. We've encouraged other RCEP members to optimize their operating modes, standardize and streamline their customs supervision formalities, and discuss with them customs procedures. We have formulated a plan to promote AO mutual recognition and implementation between China and other RCEP members. Among the 10 RCEP members with AO system, we have already signed AO mutual recognition arrangements with 5. In comprehensive bonded zones in pilot FTZs in Shanghai, Guangdong, Tianjin, and Fujian, we have experimented the relevant measures. For instance, identifying the scope of tolerable tiny errors in the certificate of origin under preferential trade agreements. Third, in terms of animal and plant quarantine and food security and inspection of imports and exports, we've leveraged our complementarity with other RCEP members in terms of cooperation on animal and plant quarantine, sorted through our imported agri-products access system, and facilitated the export of Chinese high-quality agri-products. We've enhanced information sharing with other members of RCEP on animal and plant pandemic, facilitated international cooperation on pandemic monitoring, and upgraded and launched an information website on China-ASEAN cooperation on animal and plant quarantine and food security. We've continued to follow and study the relevant technical trade measures of other RCEP members, and raised our trade concerns, lodged representations, and had consultations on multilateral and bilateral channels to protect the lawful rights and interests of Chinese exporters. Meanwhile, we have promulgated and interpreted RCEP policies concerning customs services, especially on ROO. We've conducted nearly 1,000 trainings, helped in multiple ways businesses to get familiar with ROO and also tax rate, and know how to enjoy preferential clearance, how to apply for certificate of origin, and how to issue self-declarations. Thank you. Next question. Thank you. Renmin Daily, People's Daily. The Central Economic Work Conference stated that micro-policies should bring out the vitality of market entities. How did the foreign trade market entities perform last year, and what policies have GCC rolled out to bring out their vitality? Thank you for your question. In 2021, the vitality of China's foreign trade entities continued to grow, underpinning the steady growth in foreign trade. We have 567,000 businesses with records in imports and exports, up by 36,000. The private sector remains the largest foreign trade entity. According to our data, in 2021, the foreign trade of the private sector was 19 trillion yuan, up by 26.7%, accounting for 48.6% of the total. The foreign trade of foreign invested businesses remained stable at 14.03 trillion yuan, up by 12.7%. The trade of SOEs has picked pace, reaching 5.94 trillion yuan, up by 27.7%. The GCC has made the following efforts last year to bring out the vitality of the foreign trade market entities. First, continue the reform to transform government functions. The recordation of customs declaration entities can be processed online and in anywhere around the country. We've deepened the reform to transform our functions, promoted the transit from licensed registration to recordation of declaration entities, and also rolled out facilitation measures so that the recordation can be processed online and across the country. In other words, businesses can access the single window or Internet plus customs anywhere in China, file their application for recordation, and after approved by the customs office there, they can themselves print the receipt. So the whole process is paperless and online. If business choose the wrong customs office, the office that receives their application should help them sort it through, so that businesses can apply anywhere and go get things done once and for all with no overdue trips or costs. Second, accelerate cooperation on mutual recognition of AEO in the world to help businesses enjoy facilitation in a broader scope. With a focus on BRI countries, other RCEP members, Central and Eastern European countries and important trading partners. We have accelerated cooperation on AEO mutual recognition. In 2021, we've reached AEO mutual recognition with Serbia, Chile, Uganda, Iran, and South Africa. So far, we have signed mutual recognition agreements with 21 economies, including the EU and Singapore, covering 47 countries and regions, the number of which ranks the top in the world. Among them, there are 31 BRI countries, 5 RCEP members, and 13 Central and Eastern European countries. The exports of Chinese AEO businesses to these countries and regions can directly enjoy facilitation measures at local customs, such as reduced examination and inspection, priority processing, designated liaison officers, and preferential clearance in special times, so as to lower their trading costs and bring out their vitality. Third, enhance the customs protection of IPRs to stimulate the innovation vitality of businesses. We've launched the long-term Operation 2021 to comprehensively strengthen IPR protection, the Blue Net Operation 2021 to protect IPRs in delivery channels, and also Clean Net Operation 2021 for IPR protection in entrepôt trade, so as to continue to crack down on infringement of IPRs. We have compiled Customs IPR Protection Knowledge Graph, developed and experimented IPR trademark smart identification technology on the new generation of mobile services of inspection and management. We've provided tailored IPR protection guidance and service, enhanced business awareness and capacity to protecting their IPRs, and enhanced law enforcement cooperation across departments, customs zones, and borders. We've strengthened whole chain protection of IPRs and better serve businesses' innovation and development. Going forward, in line with the requirement of boosting confidence of foreign trade market entities, the GACC will continue to deepen the reform to streamline other functions, optimize business environments at ports, help businesses alleviate their difficulties and recover, and better bring out the vitality and internal dynamism of foreign trade market entities. Thank you. Next question. Thank you. Global Times. Under COVID-19, traditional trade has taken a strong hit. New modes such as cross-border e-commerce has played an important role in ensuring orders, market, and also market share. Could you please brief us on the trade of these new modes last year? Thank you for your question. As I said in my opening remarks, cross-border e-commerce and market procurement and also other new modes are important forces in China's foreign trade and also important tendency in international trade. Since the start of COVID-19, China's cross-border e-commerce has leveraged their strengths such as online sales, online transactions, and no-contact delivery, and also actively fostered new strengths in participating in international economic cooperation and competition. Their trade volume continues to grow rapidly. Two aspects. First, about cross-border e-commerce. We've comprehensively rolled out B2B export trials. New modes like China-Europe Railway Express and combined transfer of goods continue to boom. To help cross-border e-commerce exporters to tap the international market, in the second half of last year, GACC's cross-border e-commerce B2B export supervision pilot programs have been replicated across the country with improving supporting policies. Also, cross-border e-commerce trains such as SCO demonstration zone to Minsk, Yiwu, Xinjiang, Europe, Suzhou, Xinjiang, Europe, and Hefei to Hamburg and Wilhelmshaven have opened and run regularly, integrating the China-Europe Railway Express with cross-border e-commerce. According to GACC data, last year the trade of cross-border e-commerce was 1.98 trillion yuan, up by 15%. The export was 1.44 trillion yuan, up by 24.5%. The second, on market procurement, the export surpassed 900 billion yuan. As market procurement pilot programs expanded, last year China's market procurement export was 930.9 billion yuan, up by 32.1%, accounting for 4.3% of the total trade in the same period, contributing to 1.3 percentage point growth of export. Thank you. Last question now. Thank you. We know that the goal of foreign trade last year was steady increase in both volume and quality. What are the new changes and features in quality improvement last year? Thank you for your question. In 2021, China's foreign trade has hit a new high in volume and also made a lot of new progress in quality improvement. There are several features. First, a higher share in the international market. According to WTO's latest data, in 2021, the first 3 quarters, China's share in the international market was 14.9%, 0.6 percentage points higher year-on-year, and also 3.8 percentage points higher than 2012. The growth is equivalent to that at the start of 2000. And also the export share in the international market, which was 10% in 2013, has grown to 12.1% last year, 0.5 percentage points higher. It shows our remarkable achievements in the new era in reform and opening up. Second, faster development of new modes. Last year, China's cross-border e-commerce exports grew by 24.5%, and market procurement exports grew by 32.1%. The policies and measures to promote sound, steady, and innovative development of new modes of foreign trade are taking effect. Third, stronger role of the opening up platforms. Last year, the total foreign trade in comprehensive bonded areas grew by 24.3%. That in pilot FTZs grew by 26.4%, and that in the Hainan Free Trade Port grew by 57.7%. Fourth, greater vitality of entities. Last year, we have 567,000 businesses with import and export records, up by 36,000. The private sector has contributed 58.2% of the growth of total foreign trade. Fifth, better structure in imports and exports. In terms of trade structure, the share of general trade in the total foreign trade last year grew by 1.6 percentage points. Nearly 60% of exports were electromechanical products. In terms of regional distribution, Central and Western China registered 6.93 trillion yuan in foreign trade, up by 22.8%. 1.4 percentage points higher than the total growth rate. Among trading partners, our trade with EU, the US, and Japan grew by 17.5%, and trade with Latin America and Africa grew respectively by 31.6% and 26.3%. China has worked closely with our trading partners to jointly protect the stability of global industrial and supply chains, and also facilitated the global economic recovery. And also to use this opportunity to brief you on GACC's measures to coordinate post-COVID response and steady growth in foreign trade.
In 2021, faced with the global pandemic, China's foreign trade had a flying scorecard, and foreign trade became a big highlight of China's economy. This not only demonstrated the strong resilience of China's economy, but also the contribution of China's customs. The GACC has followed the guidance of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism and China's characteristics for a new era, and the instructions from the CPC Central Committee and State Council, and we have done our best to grasp the new requirements on the new development philosophy and introduced the Customs Development Plan and the National Ports Development Plan for the 14th five-year plan period, putting the national customs to a new journey to serve the fostering of a new development paradigm. In the past year, we have made coordinated efforts on development and safety, strengthen supervision and services to improve our regulation capacity. And our efforts have contributed to the stable growth of our trade volume and quality. In the past year, we adopted a systematic approach to facilitating the development of the Beijing-Tianjin Hebei Coordinated Development, the Yangtze River Economic Belt, the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area, the Yangtze River Delta Integrated Development Strategies. We also worked to serve the free trade pilot zones, the Hainan Free Trade Port development, and the high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative. We expanded the mutual recognition cooperation of AEOs and the promoted development of street smarts. We finished the preparation for RCEP in advance and contributed to the high-level opening up of China's economy. And also on our work, first we adopted science-based and targeted approach to COVID response at the ports. With utmost determination and most responsive actions, we applied the most rigorous regime to COVID response at ports. First, our analysis of COVID-related information were strengthened. We implemented the 4 early requirements and had analyzed in relevant information on variants and changes of measures on a daily basis. We applied tailored plans for each port customs on land. And second, we strengthened quarantine at ports. And our quarantine efforts and inspections were applied with the most strict standard. All inbound personnel would go through strict temperature checks, check of health declaration cards, medical inspection, and sample testing. And through our interagency coordination mechanisms, we have ensured strict control measures for all the procedures, including transfer, information, communication, to ensure seamless and closed-loop management of inbound personnel. Third, we applied the same standards to personnel, goods, and venues COVID response. We strictly followed relevant regulations of the State Council interagency coordination mechanism on supervision over nucleic acid testing and preventive disinfection at ports, and carried out relevant in disinfection work for inbound aircrafts. Fourth, we strengthened protection of personnel safety. We applied a rigorous supervision system to ensure effective training for relevant personnel working at the frontier, and especially staff at high-risk posts. And we ensured all staff at the frontier of ports are fully vaccinated. The second, we worked with all-out efforts to promote steady growth of foreign trade. We focused on high-level opening up to the outside markets and actively implemented relevant policy measures for ensuring stable foreign trade and foreign investment. First, we improved business environment at ports. We have provided one-stop services for approval and processing of all of 38 kinds of supervision licenses, have benefited more than 230,000 foreign trade businesses. In December 2021, the customs clearance time for import and export were generally 32.97 hours and 1.23 hours, respectively, on average, and that was 66.14% and 89.98% lower compared to 2017. The second, we have worked to lower the customs clearance cost for businesses and worked rigorously to reduce government-imposed transaction cost. By the end of 2021, we have 3,775 businesses have purchased customs bonds insurance, contributing 534.02 billion yuan of taxes. And this has also helped businesses reduce their costs. Third, we have vigorously promoted new business models in trade. In July 2021, we have put in place a new supervision model for B2B direct export overseas warehouses for export products in cross-border e-commerce to facilitate efforts by businesses to expand international presence. We have supported new trials of procurement trade across the nation. And fourth, we have also promoted the bonded area as high-quality development. And these efforts have contributed to the high-quality opening up of China to the outside world. Thank you very much, Mr. Li. That concludes our press conference today. Thank you very much. That concludes today.